So just kind of the bare
Okay, some of
basics.
it.
They were kept alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they were definitely kept alive. They ate really well. But I don't think the homework, it wasn't checked as well as I check it. So the studying part, because I came home like, what happened to her grades? I've just been gone to like, literally. And the teacher sent home a note saying, I will allow her to retake these two
Okay.
to regain points. And I was like, I've
Did the
never
teacher
seen
know you were
something
out
so.
of town?
Yes, I let him know I was gonna be gone for about 14 days because I had a trip before too.
Uh-huh.
So I was
That's why
only
you got that's why you got the do-over. Because they're like, oh,
right,
we know
right,
you.
right. We know you were away. You get a
Yeah.
do-over.
On today's Harness the Power of Planning podcast, I talked to my friends Christine and Angela, who I was on vacation with a month ago, and we catch up about what's transpired in the last month and any sort of things that have fallen out of our trip away on the podcast, episode 95, starting now. Hi, I'm Allegra Ramos, and thank you for joining me today, Friday. I know it's usually on Thursday for this live broadcast, which also goes up as the Harness the Power of Planning podcast. And I'm joined today by two of my friends who I know you've seen before on the podcast, Christine in the middle and Angela at the bottom. And you probably saw them a month ago if you saw our podcast while we were on vacation. And it was always so fun when we come back and there's all these texts flying between the four of us. And some of the texts were like, oh, I'm doing this thing differently because I just saw Allegra. But before we get into that, I just want to read, I've been pulling from this deck of cards. And by the way, I know I look different than I usually do because I was speaking at an event last night and I literally got home around 11 p.m. and then drove my kid to school anyway. I showed up as the best I could, but my friends will have to just make up for being more put together than I am. So I'm just going to pull a card and we're going to chat about it a little bit. If it isn't the great big pleasures that count the most, it's making a great deal out of the little ones. Gene Webster. It's not the great big pleasures that count the most. It's making a great deal out of the little ones. Gene Webster. I mean, I feel like that's just another way of saying it's the little things that matter.
Mm-hmm.
I
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it actually reminds me of something that we try and say to our kids because what they are working on is all of these very incremental, movements forward, whether it's, tackling a new vocabulary word. And so we say, like, we know you're looking for the big successful thing, but progress forward, that counts. So
Yeah.
I like that card.
And do you do anything to celebrate the progress or just like, let's take a moment and reflect on how far you've come?
We do because we let them know that that's just literally one step closer to the big celebration. Even if for my 8-year-old, that means just summer school. We say every day that you make it a positive one to wake up and go to school, that's one step closer to summer. And we celebrate.
Oh, one step closer to summer, not one step closer to summer school.
Oh, sorry, to being out of school. Yes.
I'm like, wow,
I was thinking
reward
one step closer to summer school.
You're
I wish
hardcore.
you were going to be in summer school. Now.
How about you, Angela? Any thoughts?
Yeah, sort of along the same lines because sometimes we get so wrapped up in the big thing and we don't stop and take a look at the journey, like the incremental pieces are along the journey. And so especially with praise for my youngest, letting her know that it doesn't really matter what the end result is as long as you've done your best each time along the way. And so we're trying to help her learn that it doesn't matter how fast you finish that book compared to all your rest of your friends.
Right.
It's just the fact that today you read another chapter.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so that goes along with that as well as with her gymnastics and everything else that she does. Today she's doing fencing. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, it's actually, this quote made me think of something that when my husband and I had moved into our home, our first Halloween, we carved pumpkins together. And I remember thinking, I am having so much fun carving this pumpkin right now. This is so satisfying. And it was such a strong thought that I was like, huh, that's interesting because, there are a lot of things that I think our culture celebrates that I don't actually like to do, like going to a bar. I do not enjoy bars. And I remember when I was younger, I was like, am I missing out? Like all these people are going to bars and it just was not fun for me. And so the pumpkin thing, it was kind of me realizing like, oh, I just have different values and priorities that, I might not see them out there in the larger culture, but this is really stinking fun for me. And so I was like, wow, I am going to be really easy to amuse. So that's what I think of with this one. Cool. Well, so I just got back, everyone. I was speaking out of my city. So I'm in Los Angeles. I was speaking in Sacramento to a group of executive women, about 50 women yesterday. And so it was really fun because, I flew out Wednesday. I got to have dinner with a friend. That was fun catching up. And then just this whole day event yesterday. And it was a slightly different format than I've ever led before. So that was fun and challenging. But, one thing that's really interesting is that it was my first time doing this new format since doing stand-up comedy. And I have to tell you, my big realization is that the great thing about doing stand-up comedy is that stand-up comedy is so scary that presenting for 90 minutes in front of 50 high-level executives feels easier than stand-up comedy. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like this is less nerve-wracking than it used to be because the stand-up comedy is so much more nerve-wracking. So that was an interesting insight.
Well, I imagine you take time to kind of, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of research what you're presenting, and maybe there's even some brain science behind it or data behind it. And with comedy, it's like so subjective. It's so like what's funny to one person is just not to another. I don't know.
I mean, the content I was presenting, I know it really well.
Okay.
So because I've written a book on it. This book, Rock Your Morning. So really it was a presentation of this book, but it was just, a slightly different audience, a slightly different format. Also, I've just been doing so much more virtual the last few years. So, flying and doing it in person and all the logistics with not wanting to check luggage. And yet I was bringing 30 books with me so that if people wanted to purchase them after, they could. And so just all the logistics involved was just so different that I thought it was going to be, I just felt maybe it was just because I'm so prepared, like you're saying, whereas with the comedy, it does change constantly. But I just remember thinking like, yeah, just comedy is just way more, it's way more challenging. Like I know what these individuals needed and wanted and were expecting from me. With comedy, you have no idea.
Right.
Very much unpredictable.
Yes.
A variable that you can't control.
Very unpredictable. So here's what I'm suggesting to you all. If you have something really scary that you have to do professionally, find something scarier.
Yeah.
That it doesn't really matter what you do. Like you might bomb but it doesn't affect you professionally, but it's just going to set your tolerance so much higher for being scared that then when you do the professional thing, it'll be easy.
That's great. Yeah.
So there you go. So, okay. So we've all been back for a month. I miss you all. It was so much fun.
So great.
I actually talked about you all in the conference yesterday because after my presentation, there was a Q&A of the panel. And one of the questions that was asked is, do you have a group of people, either, mentors or peers that you kind of go to as your sounding boards? And so I said, yes, I have this group of close girlfriends and we have a chat in our phones called the Clitorati. And basically everyone was like, why don't I have one of those? So I think we're going to see a lot more Clitorati chats popping up across the country.
We could just have different chapters all across the nation.
Right. So, so I was able to speak about you all. So if anyone's watching that was there yesterday, these are part of the Clitorati. So there you go. So tell me, y'all, what has it been like now that you're back?
Well, Angela and I chatted a little bit sidebar because we both have kids under 10. And
Yeah.
I was asking her, I kind of recalled from our last trip, was there some regression that you experienced again with the kids in terms
Oh.
of just, bedtime
Right.
or basically the routine? Because I
The
feel that,
routine. It was,
yeah,
yeah.
right. Often the moms, or maybe it's just the primary home person is taking care of the routine. And when we left, that routine wasn't necessarily adhered to in any way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Or
So
loosely adhered to, if you could call
loosely
it that.
adhered.
Right,
I
because we
like,
were gone for 10 days, right? So it was
Right.
long
Right.
enough that they could get out of routine.
yeah, yeah. I don't know, Angela, did you, I thought we were kind of in the
Yeah.
same boat.
Yeah, we totally were. Like I came back, like I'm not quite sure what happened to dinner time, bedtime, wake up time, homework time. Um, yeah, and so and specifically
Yeah.
studying.
Mm.
Mhm.
Like it
And I
didn't
saw that
happen or just wasn't
like
happening the way it was supposed to?
I don't know that it happened.
So just kind of the bare
Okay, some of
basics. They
it.
were kept alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they were definitely kept alive. They ate really well. But I don't think the homework it wasn't checked as well as I check it. So
Mhm.
the studying part, because I came home like, what happened to her grades? I've just been gone to like literally.
Yeah.
And the teacher sent home a note saying, I will allow her to retake these two
Okay.
to regain points. And I was like, I've
Did the
never
teacher
seen
know you were
something
out
so
of town?
yes, I let him know I was gonna be gone for about
Yeah.
14 days because I had a trip before too. So I
Uh-huh.
was only home.
That's why you got the do-over. Because they're like,
Right.
oh, we know
Right.
you.
Right. We know you were away. You get a
Yeah.
do-over.
Right.
But yeah, but in addition to that, the teacher was out a bit. So there were some, different people in the classroom teaching. So I think there was like this sort of, we'll take care of it. Don't worry, she'll get another shot.
Oh,
Well,
So
that's
yeah,
smart that
so
you had let them know before you were going that
yeah.
you
I
were gonna be
always
out of
do. It's
town.
always, yeah, ladies, gentlemen, everyone listening,
Yeah.
know
Right.
this. Let the teacher know if you have kids you're going out of town because you get grace when you come back. They're
Yes.
like, oh
Yes.
yeah, anything bad that happened, you can work through it more easily.
Yeah.
Smart.
And then if
Smart.
then if the teachers notice some, little behavioral change, they can, to your point, not only give us grace, but ideally to the kids as well. Be like, oh, got
Precisely.
it.
Got it.
I know
Got
what's
it.
happening.
Whether or not, but it's a great excuse too. So,
Right. Right.
Yeah.
but then in the home, it's like you almost have to pay for being gone. It's like like walking in the door. It was literally tag, you're it. Like it wasn't
Yes.
said, but I totally felt it. My plane got in. I got home 2 o'clock in the morning,
Uh-huh.
and all of a sudden it was like, oh yeah, well, aren't you going to take her to school at 8 like normal? I'm like, I've been flying all day. Yeah, I'm on it.
Right. Yeah. Welcome home.
Right. We love you.
Well,
Right.
my kiddo is a little bit older than your kiddo, Angela. So I was happy to see that things were being kept up with. She's in high school. So I was happy to see things were being kept up with. Chores still got done. My plants were still alive because she's
Nice.
responsible for watering the plants. Although sometimes I have to remind her. So it was good that happened. And it was interesting because last time we all went on vacation, we went for 14 days, some of us. And I think we all felt like that was a little bit too long. And so this time we did 10 days and I felt like it was perfect. I'm sure our husband still felt like it was a little bit too long, but it didn't feel too long for us, right?
Yeah. I thought it was perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
So was there anything that you started doing while we were on vacation that you've brought back home? Because I know you all tease me about my supplements and what I'm eating and my skincare. You photobomb my face yoga before. So was there anything that you picked up when we were on vacation that you've actually brought home?
For me, it was just having time to sit and read a book. And I realized that, yes, there's a lot going on when you're back from vacation, but a lot of that also, I think, is just deciding I'm going to make time
Mhm.
for something that I'd like to do, whether that's maybe a half hour less of a television show or a half hour later going to bed or whatever it is where you're going to kind of carve out that time.
Mm-hmm.
So just picking back up a book again.
Yeah.
I was in a book club. I fell out of that. I'm going to get back into book club because I enjoy that. And it's crazy to think, oh, how did I go 3 months or 4 months and not read one book? That
Mhm.
seemed a little odd. So I picked that back up.
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
having so much fun trading among us the book.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
That was fun.
exactly. So when I got back, there was one book that I didn't finish reading, so I went to the library and got it
Oh, cool.
immediately. So to the degree that my husband was like, we were something was going on with the kids, and we needed to do something, and he's just like, I don't have time to just sit around and read a leisure book. So, so I guess he noticed that one,
Yeah.
and the other is just cooking. I was like, you
Oh,
would
gosh.
if, yeah, but you could if you like turned off the TV, right?
Yes.
One less.
He watches so much
Oh my
TV.
That's right.
I know
Yes.
because I've
Yes.
watched it with him.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So there's
Yeah.
plenty of room to read. The other is just cooking healthier and being more mindful about, what we're eating. I think like now I'm like, I need a purple food if I can. I need like
Mhm.
choosing purple onions, purple cabbage versus just white cabbage, choosing
Yes.
like you get this driving home a couple mornings from dropping my daughter off. I'm like, oh my goodness, we're out of portobello mushrooms. I need to go get some a mushroom.
Yes.
Love
So
that.
just to give background to everyone who's watching. So I have been following Dr. Greger's outline for food. If you haven't read any of his books, he has great books. One of them, I would say the main one is How Not to Die. And it's not how to live forever. It's how not to die from high cholesterol, how not to die from high blood sugar, that sort of thing. And so he really gives you a eating plan that is very plant-based. And I have been eating this way now for about 7 months, and the first 2 months, it brought my cholesterol down by 20%. Just
Wow.
diet alone, no other changes, no exercise changes, nothing. Diet alone, 20% brought down my cholesterol, and so I've been eating this way, and so they all saw me eating this way, and because I like to cook, I was doing a lot of the cooking for the 4 of us, and so they all had to basically eat what I what I was making because that's all that was being made, and
No
so
meat.
yeah, so no, they were like, can we get some meat?" I'm like, "Sure, if you wanna go get it, but I'm not cooking meat."
Yeah.
But I explained to them, I was like, I'm doing red onions specifically because they have more phytonutrients, and you have to get a mushroom in because there's some nutrients that are mushrooms that you can't get anywhere else in food, and so that's what Angela's saying by she had to get her portobello mushroom, she had to get her red cabbage. So, yeah.
All
Yeah.
good
And
stuff.
Allegra, I heard that you're going to make this podcast go viral by sharing your spice ingredients.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Ha, ha, ha.
Yeah. So I spent like the first 2 or 3 days back here trying to like replicate that, as did Susan. And we were like, what you put in yours? She made us a wonderful dish, and we were just trying to figure out what went in it. And I think my family ate that for like 3 or 4 days in a row while I was working on it. I couldn't figure it out.
And did they enjoy it?
Yeah, they did. I mean, it's healthy, but it doesn't taste like yours.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Well, you're getting there. You're getting there. It takes practice,
It does.
But so Angela, you've been eating more plant-based and more colorfully, more a la Dr. Greger?
Precisely. Yeah, precisely. And I started doing our own turmeric and ginger shots.
Mhm, mhm.
And like now they're getting like sort of bossy at the house, like, hey mom, you haven't made any more lately, like we're running out. So the whole house is just doing a little bit better from a health perspective.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. I love hearing that.
That's awesome.
Anything
Yeah.
else?
Allegra, I started adding the wheat germ and the chia seeds to shakes and salads and just kind of being more mindful about, especially at our age, the idea of adding more protein into our foods.
Mhm.
And you don't realize that can be a lot of food or a lot of protein. And so that's been great to just kind of pick up those little habits.
Well, and fiber too. Like I love the chia seed habit because, I was traveling and sometimes you can't pack enough food or your food gets confiscated at the airport for no good reason. And the nice thing about dry chia seeds is they're never going to get confiscated. So I always fly with at least 2.5 tablespoons of dry chia seeds per day that I'm going to travel.
Oh,
And it
smart.
doesn't take up a lot of space.
Mm-mm.
And then if there's no good food at the airport and your food got confiscated, you just add it to your water and you've got 10 grams of fiber, you've got a whole bunch of other nutrients, and you're just like satisfied. You're not hungry.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's definitely one of my favorite habits that I picked up from Dr. Greger is just chia seeds every day, either just plain in water or adding it to your smoothie, like you say. By the way, I don't blend it in my smoothie. I let
Okay.
them sit in my water. I let them sit in water and soak because, they get a little gelatinous. They become almost
Yeah.
like tapioca pudding.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important because that gelatin is part of what traps bad things on its way out of your body. So it helps
Okay.
Oh,
clean you
interesting.
out.
Oh, great. Okay.
So I
Yeah.
make my smoothie and then I just add the gelatinized chia into it right before I'm going to eat it. But the other thing you can do that I do all the time for my kiddo is I take the chia seeds, I put a little, oat milk or coconut milk or whatever, and then some
Mhm.
cinnamon and some honey. And it's like, hey, chia pudding,
Chia
honey.
pudding, yeah.
Yeah, it's just yummy.
Yeah,
So
I like
that's
that.
a great one.
I've been putting chia, like it's in my tea all the time, which is actually my tea is really just lemon water I drink in the morning. But I started that with being with Allegra, I don't know how many years ago.
Uh-huh. Yes, my
So-
lemon water.
Right. So now I add chia to it in the morning and my daughter now likes it.
That's awesome.
So she thinks it's fun. She just thinks it's fun to it's like eyeballs rolling around.
Yes, they look
okay.
like little eyeballs.
I'm like, okay.
They are fun. Chia is fun. The only thing I will say about chia is that there's a little bit of a learning curve because they are very sticky.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to get the water ratio correct to like get them off the side of the glass.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to stir them constantly because they tend to clump. So
Yes.
just so you know, just stir, 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 walk away, stir, stir, stir. You'll get used to it. But it's so good for you. Super easy fiber. Because I just want to share this one thing from Dr. Greger because he was explaining that like if you eat the same amount of calories in peanut butter straight versus the peanut butter with an apple, you absorb less fat because the fiber in the apple will grab some of that fat and it'll go out your
Eliminate it.
system rather than being absorbed. And so this one study that he cites, these two groups ate exactly the same food, but one group got a fiber supplement. And that group absorbed fewer calories, fewer fat than the other group. Just that one change.
Oh,
So I've just really been prioritizing since I've been eating Dr. Greger's style, really been prioritizing the fiber, and the chia seeds are just the easiest way to do it.
Excellent.
Yeah. So as you can tell, I'm excited about it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk on chia seeds. So anything else that you all brought back with you? By the way, if we were in Hawaii, for those of
Clothing.
you. What do you
Too
mean
much.
clothing?
Like the last day that we spent I don't know, way too much money on a sale. We just went in for one thing and we bought all those clothes.
Oh,
all the clothing.
that was just you and I. Yes. Damn you, Angela.
That's your fault.
I never buy clothes new. If you know me, I mean, not never, but if
I was
buy
very
clothing-
surprised at Buy Nothing Woman who was buying a lot.
Buy Nothing and eBay, they say that there's enough clothing in the world right now to clothe the next 6 generations.
Yeah.
So I try never to buy clothing new because there's just so much new with tags and gently used available secondhand. I'm amazed at what I get new with tags sometimes.
Yeah.
So anyway, but the funny thing was when Angela and I first met 25-ish years ago, when Angela and I first met, I was single. She was married, but her husband was not in the same country because she was on exchange. And we were in Barcelona. And Angela and I used to walk around and Barcelona is an amazingly beautiful city. amazing shopping city. And so we would just spend a lot of time in stores. And so I don't think Angela and I have done this since.
No, we haven't.
But there was something so familiar. I was like, "Why? I'm having like deja vu moment, like walking around a store with you." And I was like, "Oh, that's right, because we did this so much when we first met." And of course, we were just like, "Oh my God, that looks amazing on you. Oh my God, that looks amazing on you." So yeah, we were.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So much that I had to ship it back. Like I was going to have to either buy another suitcase and pay extra. So I was like, can I ship this back free of charge?
I was thinking about you guys the other day because I came across some reel or whatever they're called where it said, I love traveling with people who think of shopping in a convenience store as a cultural event. Because I was thinking about how we were at Rite Aid, but we were finding all of the local, like the chocolate or the cookies.
It
Or
wasn't Rite Aid. It was
Longs.
Longs.
Longs. Thank you. Thank you. And I was like, yes, because that was fantastic. And the things that I brought home, for family and friends was delicious. And
Yeah.
It
If
was
you're ever in
yummy.
Hawaii, y'all, Longs is a great place to pick up local foods. Just so you know.
yeah, it was perfect.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite places to go to just stock up on coffee and that kind of thing from Hawaii.
Yeah.
So, well, it has been so much fun. Any last thoughts about vacation? Like it's something that would have made it easier for you all to get away or made it easier for you all to return to your routines? Like tips to
A
share for people
clone
thinking
who
about
could
planning
stay
their own?
here.
I'm sorry, what?
A clone who could stay
Right.
here while I go.
Yeah.
Oh, if only.
If only.
Yeah.
Only.
I think we also need to get our husbands together for them to do a trip because I think they'll be um, more encouraging of
Yes.
our girls' trip. So maybe that should be our goal for
Oh,
2026.
interesting. Well, I did have one thing to share. Yeah, I like that idea. I am going to some people have been asking me, I am going to put together a how to plan a girl trip type of hold on, I need to add something here. I am going to put together a how to plan a girl trip list because I do think
Yeah.
one of the things that works really well is that it's when we go to Hawaii, it's a place that I know really well because my family's from there, and so that makes it really easy. And it's a place that we've all been to before, right? This was our third time traveling there together. The first time being my wedding. Just reminding you all because I know it was a long time ago. So we kind of have like a history there, and there are things we like to do there. So if you're thinking about planning a girl trip, one of my suggestions would be just to make it easier on you. Pick a place that one of you is familiar with, because that makes it really easy, right? But I did create something. Oh my gosh, it's right over Angela's face. I did create something. I'm gonna put it different. Let me see if I can do it a different way. It's a packing light guide, and you can get it at tinyurl.com/bywd pack light, because I don't know if anyone remembers, but a couple of years ago, I really had to get good about packing light because my family, we were going to Europe for a month and we were skipping around between places. And because of that, we couldn't afford to lose our luggage. And also checking luggage is so expensive. It's like $100 per bag per person, right? So by packing light, we saved ourselves $1,200 in luggage fees, but we also never lost our luggage, which was great. And so since then, I've become a big fan of packing light. I was really proud of myself being able to travel with only carry-ons, and half my carry-on was books on this trip. So that was great. So if you want to get that, go to tinyurl.com/bywd pack light, and you will get my 4-page printable on packing light, including pictures of my outfits, so you can see that this is actually what I took with me. I'm not just saying I packed light. You could actually see it for yourself. So there you go. Thank you so much for joining me, y'all. It was so much fun. I always love having you on.
Love you.
Love you too.
Love you too.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to 2026. I think we've been talking about Arizona or New Mexico, right? Trying something a
Love
little
that.
different. So maybe we'll bring our families with us. We'll see. Okay, thanks so much for joining us, everyone. And remember, planning makes everything easier. Dream wild.
Bye, guys.
If you're ready to take your planning skills to the next level, check out our on-demand 6-session course called Harness the Power of Planning, or HPOP for short. And you can find that at tinyurl.com/HPOP on demand. We'll show you how to plan your day, your week, your month, your year, your life, and help you to start prioritizing yourself and your goals right now. Dream wild, wild dreamers. Thanks for joining us for the Harness the Power of Planning podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen.